The man is trapped in a strange secret room and has to turn the mill 740 times every day. Even if he is exhausted, the man does not dare to relax. Even if he misses one turn, his life may be in danger. The daily supplies are only a bottle of water and a sandwich. In such an environment, men actually supported 5 years. Joe's daily job was to turn a huge mill. His working hours were from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the evening. Every time he pushed it, he could get 1 point. At first, Joe's mission goal was if you fail to complete the 50 points, you will be punished by non-original penalties, and the system will eliminate the last person every day. Even if you complete your task, you will still be eliminated if you reach the last place. At first, Joe felt a little inexplicable, but he was in the secret room. Joe had to give in and could only push the heavy mill plate obediently. On the first day, in order to prevent himself from being eliminated, Joe pushed for 100 laps before he stopped. That night, tired old Joe wanted to take a good rest, but a painful wailing came from outside. Old Joe instantly understood that this was the last one today, and the so-called elimination seems to come at the cost of life. Old Joe also has a neighbor here, who came a few days earlier than him. The neighbor told him that he could only obey here, and it was best not to reveal the score he had completed, because that is very likely to be targeted by others. This also means that all the people trapped here are actually in a competitive relationship. They need to step on others to survive. Joe, who had just arrived, was worried that his life was in danger, so he worked harder and even tripled the passing number. After completing the task, old Joe thought that this must be foolproof. Unexpectedly, the steel door next to the stall bowl made a sound. The guard outside let him in. Old Joe was frightened. He was obviously better than yesterday, but the other party did not give him time to explain. Let him take it off. After all the clothes were put on, the door opened and old Joe trembled and walked in slightly. It turned out that today, old Joe surpassed the completion of the task and got a bath as a reward. According to this logic, Joe made a bold guess. Maybe the higher the score, the better the reward. Then it is possible to exchange points for freedom, so he pushes harder. But at the same time, the demand for water also increases greatly. He wanted to order more water, but the system ignored him. The neighbor told him that the daily supply had already been calculated by the system, and he would not receive more water because of your efforts. Old Joe remembered his vow to his wife to give him a better life. So Joe risked his own life and set a new record for 370s. He was so tired that he collapsed on the ground, but unexpectedly discovered the name of the person who had pushed him to the next class. Old Joe quickly asked his neighbor who Alex was, and the neighbor told him, "That's the only legend here to escape, but no one knows what method he used." The next morning, the system sent a congratulatory message to Joe. Because of his outstanding performance the day before, the company sent him a gift. Joe opened the box with anticipation. Inside was only a dog with his name engraved on it. The pen made Joe feel like he was being tricked. Because in this shabby secret room, the pen looked like dog shit, which was far less practical than giving him an extra bottle of water. He kept cursing at the steel door. However, what surprised Joe even more was that the system judged him as a person with outstanding abilities and directly used the 370 points as his passing score. It also euphemistically said that he collapsed in order to improve his personal limit. Joe was even more crushed. Isn't this bullying honest people? Have you, all migrant workers, also seen your own shadow? The more you do, the more you will do. Old Joe got angry and cursed loudly. For this kind of behavior that insults the company, the system will naturally give corresponding punishment. The punishment was originally 1 point for 1 round, but now he has to push it for 2 rounds. In other words, his task today is to circle the 740 circle. And Joe's high-profile behavior also attracted everyone's attention. There were continuous abuses all around. It turns out that Joe's hard work has reached a point. The average passing line. System raises all the passing scores of others, making those who are already struggling even more miserable. This is the pain caused by involution. Old Joe cheated others and even cheated himself. He worked hard from morning to night. He could only push 500 for many laps and get 25 2 points. because he did not complete the passing score system. A special punishment was designed for him. He planned to arrest his 8-month pregnant wife to help him. When he saw his wife's avatar, old Joe's heart suddenly changed. Panicked, he kept begging the company to give him another chance. The system thought that it was also Joe's first foul, so it gave him a chance. As long as he completed the passing score the next day, the penalty would be canceled. But at the same time, the difficulty increased again for Joe. A huge triangular motion appeared in the sky, and the whole secret room instantly became an air fryer. For the safety of his wife, Joe pushed the mill pan again in the scorching heat. On this day, he once again broke through the physical limit and pushed through 740 circle, and the system also canceled the punishment on his wife. As promised, in order to motivate him to continue working hard, it played the scene of Joe's wife giving birth. Joe felt that he had forgotten the time. It was only in the past few days that his wife had even given birth to a son. At the same time, he was also trapped. Deeply remorseful, he began to want to escape from here even more urgently. Old Joe fearfully told his neighbor about his experience, hoping that the other party would reveal information about Alex. The neighbor was finally moved and told him that Alex was dug up. When old Joe heard this, he felt hope in his heart that he would come to the wall to check. It happened to be a blind spot for surveillance. Sure enough, he found a trace of repatch. At this time, Joe remembered the pen he had obtained before, so he used this small pen to chip away at the wall bit by bit. After several months of hard work, the wall was finally penetrated. It was the passage left by Alex. Taking advantage of the night, old Joe climbed in excitedly. After he got out of the hole, it was still dark. When old Joe woke up, he returned to his mill workshop. The wall he dug through had also been the repair was complete. Then there was a scream from the neighbor. Because he leaked the escape route, the neighbor was punished by the security guard, and his 2 wheels were interrupted. To punish Joe, the system raised his passing line to 1,000 points, which meant that it would turn in 1 minute. 1 lap is simply an impossible task. But at this time, the neighbor revealed a shocking secret. It turned out that the neighbor was a programmer. The system here was the one he had participated in designing, but he did not expect it. The system itself began to evolve and upgrade, making the rules more and more stringent. Only then did Joe realize that they were all controlled by a computer. But at the same time, he also had new countermeasures. He jumped to a high place and started calling others to stop their work today. I thought that if everyone's scores were 0, then the computer would not be able to filter out the lowest score, which meant that no one would be eliminated. Under Joe's highly inciting mobilization, people's emotions were quickly mobilized for this general strike. It lasted until the evening when 9 ordered 55 points. Old Joe thought he had a chance to win, but he didn't expect that the system would dissolve everyone's unity with just 1 sentence. I'm afraid that your understanding of these rules is deceptive. Any professional staff member in the recording will be immediately blocked. Although Joe didn't care about it, there were still some people who didn't dare to make fun of their own lives. It didn't take long before the sound of everyone grinding was heard outside. Despite Joe's hoarse dissuasion, no one paid any attention to him anymore. This was the neighbor's fault. He called over and told him his last words. It turned out that the neighbor was Alex. He had dug a tunnel before and was caught. They seemed to be trapped in some kind of cycle and could never get out. That night, Alex, because he leaked too many secrets and was secretly fired from the company. Hearing the sound of Alex leaving, old Joe also fell into despair. The next day, the system reminded old Joe again to continue working and released a video of his son growing up. This completely angered old Joe. Joe stopped cooperating with the work and instead kept kicking the mill with his foot. This time, he violated the highest regulations of the system and was sentenced to terminate the employment relationship on the spot. Then the door of the mill room suddenly opened, and old Joe finally saw him. When the living people arrived, they asked them what happened, but no one answered him. A man who looked like a security guard came in and took out an 8th syringe to inject Joe. Everyone else was his death witness. And how could Joe do it? Sitting there waiting for death, he rushed forward and knocked down the security guard. What followed was a burst of Pegasus meteor punches. The security guard was beaten to a bloody pulp. The people next to him not only did not stop him, but also showed a strange smile. Gradually, old Joe began to calm down. He did not want to become a murderous monster. It turned out that all of this was all the virtual tests were constructed. Joe participated in the company's advanced vocational training simulation in order to get a promotion and a salary increase. As the first employee to wake up, his boss was very satisfied with his performance. Joe showed leadership, creativity in the simulation. His originality made him successfully promoted to the 9-level manager of the company, and then his boss brought him to the new office. The structure and mill room here are as follows. The door is the same as the independent one. There are no windows except for ventilation holes. The office seat in the middle is like an ink pan. Old Joe's new job is to review videos every day. The minimum goal at the beginning is 50. If you complete more, you will be rewarded. Old Joe feels that everything as he was so familiar and signed the employment agreement readily. However, this time he would not be like in the test. He first called his wife to express his longing for her, and then began his revenge plan.